The lights in Rendlesham Forest before you. Listen to this story. Look outside your window for a moment. If the sky is dark, ask yourself one question. If something suddenly appeared above the trees, completely silent, brighter than any star, would you run toward it? Or would you lock your door and pretend you saw nothing? If you enjoy strange and terrifying stories like this, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Your support helps this channel bring you more chilling stories every night. And if you are brave enough to listen until the end, leave a comment saying, "I saw the lights." Now, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen carefully. Because this story is not about a ghost. It is not about a haunted house. It is about something that came down from the sky. Something that may have never left. In December of 1980, near a military base in Suffolk, England, several men saw lights falling into the trees of Rendlesham Forest. At first, they thought it was a plane crash. That was the only explanation that made sense. A bright object had appeared in the night sky, moving silently above the forest. It descended between the trees, flashing red, blue, and white. There was no explosion, no fireball, no sound of metal breaking against the ground. Just light. Then darkness. Staff Sergeant Michael Harris was one of the men on duty that night. He was not the kind of man who believed in aliens. He was practical, calm, and disciplined. He had worked night patrols before. He had seen drunk civilians near the gate, strange aircraft, weather balloons, military exercises, and lights from distant roads, but he had never seen anything like this. At around 3 a.m., the radio crackled. A voice from the east gate reported, "Strange lights beyond the perimeter fence." Michael looked toward the forest. At first, he saw nothing. Only black trees standing against a cold winter sky. Then the light appeared again. A small red pulse between the trunks. Then blue. Then white. It moved as if it were breathing. One of the younger airmen beside him whispered, "Is that a crash?" Michael did not answer. The object did not look like a crash. It looked like something waiting. The men were ordered to investigate. 3 of them crossed through the gate and entered the forest with flashlights. Michael led the way. The ground was wet from earlier rain, and every step sank slightly into the mud. Their beams cut through the trees, catching branches, mist, and drifting patches of fog. At first, the forest seemed normal, too normal. No animals, no birds, no wind, even the sound of their boots felt swallowed by the trees. Then one of the men stopped. "Do you hear that?" Michael listened. There was a low hum in the air. Not loud, not mechanical. It was deeper than sound, almost like pressure inside the skull. The closer they moved toward the light, the stronger it became. Their radios began to crackle. One flashlight flickered. Then the light appeared ahead of them. Not in the sky. On the ground, between the trees, something stood in a small clearing. It was triangular, black, smooth, about the size of a small car. It rested on 3 short legs, though none of the men had heard it land. Its surface looked like dark glass or polished metal. But it did not reflect their flashlights properly. The beams seemed to bend around it, sliding away from the object like water around stone. Along its edge, small lights blinked. Red, blue, white, red, blue, white. The youngest airman took a step back. Michael raised one hand, signaling him to stay quiet. No one spoke. The object made no engine noise. No heat came from it. No smoke. No smell of fuel. But the air around it felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Michael moved closer. His body felt wrong. His teeth vibrated. His watch stopped. Later, he would remember that detail more than anything else. The second hand stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. He lifted his flashlight toward the side of the craft. There were markings on it. Not letters. Not numbers, symbols. Sharp, clean shapes etched into the surface. They looked almost like triangles, lines, circles, and strange curves connected in a pattern. Michael stared at them for too long, and the longer he stared, the more he felt they were not simply written there. They were looking back. One of the men whispered, "Sir, we should leave." Michael wanted to agree. But then the object changed. A pale light opened along its side. Not a door exactly. More like a seam. Becoming visible, the forest around them turned blue. Every tree, every branch, every breath in the cold air. The men froze. Inside the opening, there was no machinery, no seats, no controls, only darkness. Then something moved inside. Michael's throat tightened. A figure stepped forward. It was not tall. That was the first thing he noticed. It was smaller than a man, thin, almost fragile. Its body was covered in something smooth and gray, though Michael could not tell if it was skin or clothing. Its head was too large for its body. Its arms were long. Its hands had fingers. That seemed too thin, too careful. But the eyes were what made Michael stop breathing. Large, black, wet-looking, reflecting nothing. The figure stood at the edge of the opening and looked directly at him. No one screamed. No one fired. No one moved. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then Michael heard a voice. Not through his ears. Inside his head. "Do not be afraid." Michael stumbled backward. The other airmen looked at him. One of them whispered, "Did you hear that?" Michael nodded slowly. The figure lifted one hand. The lights on the craft flashed faster. Red, blue, white, red, blue, white. Then, all at once, the hum stopped. The silence was unbearable. A white light burst from beneath the object, so bright that Michael threw his arm over his face. The ground shook. The trees bent outward, as if pushed by a sudden invisible wave. Then the object rose. No engine, no flame, no sound. It lifted straight up. Between the trees, impossible and silent. For 1 second, it hovered above the forest. Then it shot into the sky and vanished. The men stood in darkness. For a long time, no one spoke. When they finally returned to the base, their boots were covered in mud. Their faces pale, and none of their watches showed the same time. Michael's watch was still stopped at 3:17. The next morning, they went back to the clearing. In daylight, the place looked harmless. Just trees, mud, dead leaves. But on the ground, they found 3 marks. Pressed into the soil. Arranged in a triangle. The exact places where the object's legs had stood. The bark of nearby trees was burned on one side. A compass spun when brought near the center of the clearing. And one man's radio, which had stopped working the night before, suddenly played a sound no one could explain. A slow pulse. 3 tones. Low, high, low. Then a voice. Faint. Almost buried under static. Michael heard it clearly. "We remember you." The recording was never officially explained. At least, not to the men who heard it. The base wanted the incident quiet. Reports were written. Statements taken. Orders given. The men were told not to speak to the press. They were told they had probably seen a lighthouse, stars, or some kind of natural phenomenon. They were told that exhaustion and darkness could play tricks on trained men. Michael wanted to believe that. He really did. A lighthouse would have been easier. A meteor would have been easier. Anything would have been easier than admitting that something had landed in those woods and looked into his mind. For the next few weeks, Michael tried to live normally. He worked his shifts. He ate in the mess hall. He laughed when others laughed. But he was not the same. At night, he could still hear the hum. Sometimes, when the bass went quiet, he would wake in his room with the feeling that someone was standing at the foot of his bed, not touching him, not speaking, just watching. One night, he woke at exactly 3:17 a.m. His room was dark. The window was open, though he was sure he had closed it. Cold air moved through the room. On the wall opposite his bed, something glowed faintly. Symbols. The same symbols from the craft. They appeared one by one, as if written by invisible fingers of light. Michael sat up, unable to move. The symbols pulsed. Then the voice returned inside his head. You were marked. Michael grabbed his lamp and turned it on. The symbols vanished. The next morning, there were burn marks on the wallpaper. Not deep, but real. He touched them with shaking fingers. The pattern was still there. After that, Michael stopped sleeping with the lights off. A few days later, the dreams began. In the dreams, he was back in Rendlesham forest, but the forest was different. The trees were taller. Too tall. Their branches twisted into the sky like black veins. The triangular craft stood in the clearing. Again, but this time it was open. Waiting. The same figure stood beside it. Only now there were more of them. Dozens. Standing between the trees, silent. Watching. Each night, Michael dreamed that he walked closer. Each night, the figures did not move. And each night, just before he woke, he heard the same words. You saw the door. He did not understand what that meant, until the final dream. In that dream, the object was not in the forest. It was above his childhood home. His mother was standing in the front yard, staring up at the sky. Michael tried to call out to her, but no sound came from his mouth. The triangular craft opened. A white light fell over the house. His mother turned toward him. But her face was wrong. Her eyes were black. Her mouth opened. And in the voice from the forest, she said, "We have always been here." Michael woke screaming. After that night, strange things began happening around him. His room lights flickered whenever he walked in. Radios turned to static. Dogs barked at him from across the street. Once, while shaving, he looked into the mirror and saw something standing behind him. Small, gray, still. He spun around. Nothing was there. But on the fogged mirror, written backward, from the other side, were 3 words. Not from above. Michael reported none of this. Who would believe him? He was a soldier. He was supposed to be rational, controlled, reliable. So he stayed quiet. But silence did not protect him. One evening, almost a month after the incident, Michael returned to the forest alone. He did not tell anyone. He needed answers. Or maybe he needed to prove that the clearing was only a clearing. He parked near the edge of the woods just after sunset. The sky was dark purple, and a thin fog hung between the trees. He carried a flashlight, a camera, and a small tape recorder. The forest was silent as he entered. Too silent. He found the clearing by memory. The 3 landing marks were still there, though rain should have softened them by then. Michael placed the tape recorder on the ground and pressed record. "This is Staff Sergeant Michael Harris," he said, voice shaking despite himself. "I am at the clearing where the object was observed in December." His flashlight flickered. He swallowed. "I am alone." From somewhere behind him, a voice whispered, "No, you are not." Michael turned. His flashlight beam swept across the trees. Nothing. Then the hum began, low, deep, vibrating through the ground. The tape recorder crackled. The air changed. The fog around the clearing began to rise straight upward, as if pulled by something above. Michael looked up. The stars were gone. In their place was a black triangle, blocking the sky. No lights. No sound. Just a perfect shape. Darker than the night itself. Michael tried to run. His legs would not move. A beam of pale light touched the ground. Around him, the forest disappeared. The trees dissolved into white, and then Michael was somewhere else. He was standing in a room with no walls, no floor, no ceiling, only white light, stretching in every direction. Figures stood around him. The same beings from the craft. Their eyes reflected nothing, but Michael felt them inside his mind. Opening memories like drawers. His childhood. His father's funeral. His first day in uniform. The night in the forest. His fear. His shame. His secret thought that maybe he had wanted to be chosen. One of the beings stepped closer. Its mouth did not move, but the voice filled him. You call us visitors. Images flashed in Michael's mind. Ancient oceans. Burning deserts. Cities under ice. Human faces staring at lights in the sky. Across thousands of years. Then the voice said, "We were here before. Your names for the stars." Michael wanted to ask what they wanted. The being answered before he could think. The question. Memory. Suddenly, Michael understood. Not in words. In feeling. They were not here to invade. Not to destroy. Not to save. They were collecting. Watching. Recording. Taking pieces of human fear. Grief, love, violence, and wonder. They studied lives the way humans studied. Insects under glass. Not cruelly. Not kindly. Simply without caring. Michael felt something cold touch his forehead. The white room filled with the sound of millions of voices. People praying, crying, calling for help, laughing, dying, being born. Then one voice rose above the rest. His own. From the future. Whispering, "Do not let them remember you." Michael woke in the clearing. It was morning. His flashlight lay beside him. The tape recorder was melted. His watch was working again. But the date was wrong. 3 days had passed. When he returned to the base, people said he had been missing. He claimed he got lost. No one believed him, but no one wanted the truth either. A medical officer examined him and found a small triangular burn behind his left ear. Michael had no memory of receiving it. For years afterward, he tried to live a normal life. He left the service, moved away, changed jobs, changed cities. But every year, on the same December night, he woke at 3:17 a.m. And every year, the symbols appeared. Somewhere near him. On a window. On a mirror. In frost. In dust. On the inside of his own skin. He never married. Never had children. He said he did not want anyone else to be noticed because of him. Near the end of his life, Michael recorded one final message. In it, his voice was old and weak. He said, "I used to think they came from the stars. I do not believe that anymore. I think the stars are only where we first noticed them. I think they have been close the whole time. In the trees. In the dark between rooms. In the seconds we lose when we stare at something we do not understand." Then he paused. For several seconds, only static could be heard. When he spoke again, his voice was shaking. "If you ever see lights in the woods, do not follow them. If you ever hear a voice inside your head telling you not to be afraid, be afraid. Maybe they are doors. And maybe the most terrifying thing about the universe is not that something is out there. It is that something has always known we are here." If this story gave you chills, leave a comment saying, "I saw the lights." Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next, it may begin with a light in the sky. And a voice inside your head saying, "Do not be afraid."